Okay. Hello and welcome to Ben in the Shed in Guangzhou, like my new window. Today I'm going to have a quick look at the TTT performances in the last ZRL. Just a quick look, nothing too in-depth, haven't got much time. Alright, so here's one that Niall sent in. Niall's one of the community favourites. So this is his team restart. Now, what I'll do is I'll go from the back to the front. I have actually watched a little bit, but there's something that they do. Well, they talk about how the TTT went. So let's listen.
That's a great course. I love that course.
I bet you weren't loving it when we were on a volcano with Hayden on the front.
No, I think we were maybe just a little bit too quick on the volcano, and we probably lost 10 seconds at the top of the volcano because I think we went a little too hard for all of us. But other than that,
you can never plan it because you don't know how fast we're gonna go. But definitely there were a few occasions where I seemed to be doing my pull, like on the flat or the downhill, just before the uphill or just after the uphill.
yeah.
I know we can't plan it, but it would make so much more sense if I do all my pulls on uphills, because even so the first pull I did was going downhill into the base of the volcano.
And so just a bit of context. So what we're watching is Cunningham's stream. I'm not a big fan of the templates for the sponsored riders. I don't mind the artwork here. Having two cams is good, but I feel like the second cam's a bit of a waste. We can see his shadow pedaling on here. Now, just in terms of the conversation, Niall is a very light rider. That's why he's talking about maybe doing his pulls on the hills rather than the flats, because he's sub 40 kilograms, I think, at the moment. Maybe at 42, perhaps. But he's a very light, small rider who's an absolute beast on the climbs, but on the flats is a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to the watts.
So I was there doing like 7.5 and you guys were just probably about to come past me because you have momentum. So that was a bit pointless. And then my second pull was pretty much on the flat bit.
All right, Barney.
Way up the volcano. So.
Hey, from my stream, you will see that you half-wheeled me like non-stop.
This is the point.
That was not good for your wattage efficiency. You did much more watts.
Hayden's a beast.
Trying to draft me because of the half-wheeling.
But
The problem is,
I think I get a bigger screen for drafting, to be honest.
you guys were
Yes.
saying you weren't in the draft too much. It's because we're bunched up. Like if we're in a full pace line, which we were on a few occasions, we'll go like right behind each other. But
I was just going to say, it's so hard to actually have a pace line now. The draft dynamics has changed again. You can barely have a pace line.
I disagree with that.
Me
But
and you were constantly side
Pushing
by
each other
side.
out.
It just didn't matter. And then once you're out, you got to go all the way to the back to get back in the draft,
Which is very
which
true.
is a nightmare for the next up, right?
It's like when you're doing less watts, you push them out, and when you're doing more watts, you can't push them out the way. It's just
I'm
daft.
not
It makes
sure.
no sense.
I'll tell you,
That's what people say, but I'm
I'll
not
tell you
quite
what,
sure
it was
about that. It's
on
not
Jaden's
my
wheel.
experience.
Hayden, when you were on the front, I was doing like, I don't know, 6.5 to hold your wheel. And then Jaden, I was having to do like a watt a kilo more. So I was like doing nearly 2 minute effort before my effort each time. It was just insane. It was all right if I was stuck in the draft, but half the time I was out wide and just having to
Exactly.
ride the same speed.
So let's have a look
But no draft.
at that. We'll go back to Fuego Flats. For anyone who's done a TTT, knows that Fuego Flats is one of the most difficult places to draft. What you can really see with Fuego Flats is that when you're riding too wide, you actually have a lot more distance between the two riders. On other courses, you're shoulder to shoulder, but with Fuego Flats, you actually sit another metre or so apart, which throws both of you out of the draft. So let's have a look at that. Where are we? 500 metres in. We'll go a bit further. 500 meters. No one's hurting in 500 meters. It's almost 3 kilometers in.
Okay,
That's
Hayden.
enough.
My turn.
Okay. So right now you can see
You're on for the minute.
it's a transition. So we've got 4 wide.
Sorry, that came through a bit there.
Let them sort themselves out. This is why transitions are so important. So it's looking good now, but Cunningham's pushing up against the second rider and pushing himself out of the draft. It'd be good to have the draft meter. Unfortunately, they don't run the draft meter in the stream. So at the moment is a little bit too close to the rider ahead. It's still in the draft, but it doesn't leave any room for error. Then the rider in third place is now pushed up. And now see here the effect of
Hayden in 5 seconds.
see the effect of pushing up against that rider.
Switch.
Alright, so now the transitioning. I think Hayden's number 2. So this is the issue here now. There's all
This
pushing up.
glow is stupid.
Hayden still 5:15.
You can turn it off afterwards.
See, there's
Wait, you
literally.
can turn it off, can you?
Yeah, settings.
I like the glow.
Good.
Speaking of which,
Oh,
see,
get in the fucking draft.
yeah, you got to back off. That's the thing.
I know, Rob. It's infuriating.
All right, so you got to back off. See, I think it's Rob Wood doing 5.8. He's doing more than the person on the front doing 5.4. Might just be this very spot in moment, but at the moment, if you're pushing 5.8, are you supposed to be in second wheel or not? If you're not supposed to be in second wheel, back off. You've got a couple of riders, so you can back off quite a bit, but don't keep pushing watts and hope that the game pushes you back in, because it's not. Especially on Fuego flats, look at the gap between the riders, and also this rider will push this rider out of that wheel. So at the moment, there's no one actually in the middle of that wheel. No one's getting the perfect draft here except for this rider, but they would get a better draft if they were sitting 4 deep, not 2.5 bit deep.
Yeah, the whole last pull I did.
All right, see,
I could not get in it, or like after.
see how wide. So now these 2 riders are basically not getting draft. So Wood's doing 5.8, so he's still doing more watts than the person pulling, which I think is Hayden. Okay, he's doing 4.1, 4.1. Not too bad. Niall's doing it easy at 3.2.
It probably needs
But that's me pushing out of it now.
2, 1.
Okay, so now Cunningham, you've got to just, one of these, well, this rider doesn't have 2 jammers. One of these riders, they've just got to just give up that spot.
Rob.
Right, Niall is after Rob.
Okay, so I don't really know who Rob is, but we'll see. I think it's Wood, number 3. Okay, now he's just absolutely gunned it. Oh, it's too far back. I'm not used to Twitch.
1. Rob.
Okay, so here we go.
Right,
So Rob, I think he's Wood. So he's doing 7.4, is that right? I think 2, yeah, 2's on the front, which is Hayden. So 7.4. And is pushing through quite fast.
Niall is after Rob.
7.3, 7, 7.1. Right, so he actually kept that speed. I'm not quite sure why he zoomed off. Might have been a sticky watt. Let's have a look. Let's watch the speed.
That's me pushing out of it now.
2,
48.
1. Rob.
Right, Niall is after Rob.
It's not so much a sticky watt, it's just they lost 1 kilometre an hour. Being
Why
out
am
of
I
the
over
draft.
here?
And he's over here, as I said, Cunningham, you need to back off 300 metres ago. Now, as he's out of the draft, he's just going to, he'd be pushing watts, but he's just going backwards compared to these other riders. So they're all, Niall's doing 5, Jammer's doing 4.8, Wood's doing 6.6. even though he's not backed up as much, he's still only doing the same amount of watts and he's not in the draft. So expect him to drop back quite quickly. There he goes, he's slotted in now.
Take me now.
5 seconds.
Yeah,
Take
I'm
me
coming
now.
through.
Go.
But
4, 3,
see the gap between
2,
second and third rider.
1.
All right, go, Niall.
Going to 6:15.
Yeah, I'm doing like 6 to keep up with Jaden out of the draft.
Yeah.
I'm going to take
It's like
it
double
away
turn.
over the top
Is
hill.
it Jaden or Hayden? I thought it was
Until the
Hayden.
gradient goes down.
15, Niall. 15.
Alright, so,
Okay.
Too much talking. Just do.
okay. Now I don't want to go through too much analysis because I just spend my whole time talking about being too wide. So you can see why I went to the end of the video, because we talk about how difficult it was in the draft. You need to communicate. One of the things is actually Firesocks. Firesocks is brilliant when it comes to TTTs because it lets anyone else around you know that you're putting in an effort. So if there's a bit of a gap, I might be able to go, I think I'll look at the Burrito TTT. There's a few gaps sometimes. If you see a gap and someone does Firesocks, we can see visually straight away the fire lighting up. That person is digging, and you can relax. You can probably back off the watts a little bit so that you're not fighting them. They're not fighting you. And then they can fill that gap. As they ease past you, then you can then obviously put a bit of power on to make sure that that gap does not open up to you. Now, I've done lots of videos on technique of TTT, so I'm not going to go through too much more with this. But what I will do is I'll bring up now the burritos through this section, and you'll see the big difference. Now, by the way, while I'm here, that's through my garage apartment window. We've got Canton Tower in Guangzhou. I think that's an IMC building. And then another building, I forgot what it's called. There should be, I think there's one here where my finger is that's been built. I think the perspective from my apartment garage is a little bit different than I'm used to. But anyway, it says Guangzhou, where Whitney's from and where I've been visiting her family for our wedding and also for Chinese New Year. But we spent Chinese New Year, we spent in Zhuhai, most of it. But when Whitney gives birth to our baby boy, we most likely will be having it in Guangzhou, which is why my garage apartment is overlooking, well, looking out towards Guangzhou today. And son, if you're watching this from a few years from now, I keep saying this, I'm sorry, I apologise. So, getting back, so we looked at Restart, and now Restart's one of the strong, like they're one of the elite teams, so they've got strong riders, but they tend not to do as many TTTs as, I would say, my Burrito team. The Burrito Titans team, we went through a phase where we did a lot of TTTs, so they're well versed. We've got Piglet, who's an amazing captain. He actually did a TTT already in the ZR before this one on the same day. So big props to him to be able to do that. Let's have a look. We'll go to about the same time. I'll do a little bit earlier because I want to see, because Nick does something which I always talk about, which is using rear camera when you're on the front.
Good. I normally don't do that. I don't want the distraction, but it is quite funny, isn't it?
So talking about Nick's name.
30 seconds.
You'll hear it later on. So look, beautiful. Lined out. That's it. Stop the count. Stop the count.
Tobias, get ready.
Okay, now this is the try and be as smooth as possible this transition.
5,
There's a little bit of gap, but
2,
good thing is you can always leave a
1.
little bit of a gap.
Change to Tobias.
Third wheel if on that during this transition, because you get a bit of a
Get ready.
draft with Peter going past in his
Change in
jungle
10,
hat.
5,
No, so Nick's going to do a good kick here because he
1.
probably lost a
Change
bit
to
too much
gear.
speed. You've got to save energy,
Lee
remember?
Baxter, Get ready.
Don't finish it full completely dead that you can't get back on.
Change in 10,
Nick got to do 2 kicks there to just to finish up, get back on. Now you can
5.
ease up.
2, 1.
Now,
Change to Lee Baxter.
you watch how quickly these transitions happen because Lee's only doing, I think he's got 10 seconds. It's just basically to keep the group nice and lined out, because one of the things, if you've got a rider who's not doing a pull, they can mess with the line. If they're sitting in third wheel, and then you have to constantly have riders coming past. Whereas if you just transition to the front and then back and just keep rotating, you can actually have a smoother pace line. They don't have to do a pull at the front, they can just get to the front and then just fall off again. That's a great thing about using the bot as well, is that you can set these times during the actual ride. You can add 10 seconds as well for each. You can add up to 30 seconds or so, I'm not quite sure. But with the bot, you can personalize the amount of pulls. So at the moment, I think Piglet's doing about 1:15 pulls, all the way down to Lee Baxter doing, I think he's doing 10-second pulls.
Five,
So he comes, Lee Baxter's
2,
pulled off.
1. Change to Piglet.
No, Piglet's on. Oh, no, I was wrong. So that was Peter, and now it's Lee Baxter. Now Piglet's on. See how smooth that was?
1 minute.
That's probably the best you'll see, and they won't do any better the rest of the day. But look at the difference. Tobias is pushing up a little bit on Nick, and this will cause a bit of disruption now, but all of that before, you can line out and stay single file through Fuego flats if you remain disciplined and you give the rider in front of you a gap. So, and the riders behind have got to give you a gap.
30 seconds.
And the biggest key to this is the person on the front needs to be smooth, not surging with their power. Which is one thing I kind of struggle with
Luke
sometimes.
Elton. Get ready.
Here we go.
Change in 10.
So this is a beautiful example of what to do. I better not watch it was, because it might forward to...
Right on!
Yep. This is a bit weird.
30 seconds.
So the reason why I've come here is because at the moment there's a big gap. They've caught it. Everyone knows there's a gap. This is also when Paul Hamlet, Piglet, actually had an internet dropout, so he's also fighting his way back. He was back 14 seconds. There's a lot going on, but basically there's a big gap. Now this is where I learnt pretty early on with the Burrito Titans when we were doing TTTs. If there's a gap this big, the riders at the front need to just go back to 2 watts per kilo, because even if you ease up, like you might normally do pulls at 6 watts per kilo, backing off 1.5 watts per kilo, it seems like you're going so slow, but the reality is there's a gap here because the riders,
Right on!
they can't do 6 watts per kilo to close that gap. The gap formed originally because they were tired. So now Nick's doing 5.4, Tobias is doing 7, but he wasn't doing 7 a moment ago. 3.3. So you need to drop, if there's a gap this big, just put the parachute out. Otherwise you've got 2 teams. You've got this team versus this team, A and B team. Even when you form up,
30
these riders are
seconds.
buggered. See, it's taking a long time for this gap to close, even though it's still only doing 4.5.
Little
Nice!
Get ready.
I'll have to. Ben, make sure you
Change in
delete
10.
that. Listen.
5,
Alright, so the gap's finally
2,
come down.
1. Change to little shit.
Nice!
Piglet's actually made the catch too. He makes the catch. I say makes the catch because it's his own team. But managed to ride back from 14 seconds down.
30 seconds.
He's back into that, hasn't he?
Now, I won't look too much at this because basically they do sort themselves out. They get Piglet back in, we do the volcano climb. Enjoyed the TTTs in the finals. I'm glad to say that I haven't actually qualified because I didn't do enough events with my team, which is by desire. So, but enjoy it. I hope these tips in this 3-part series. I think it's a 3-part series that I did on TTTs is helpful. And Niall, I hope you enjoyed a little cameo with your team. Your team's strong. They know what to do. They know how to do the powers. They just need to practice those TTT a little bit more. All right, I'm just going to enjoy the fireworks in my apartment garage because it's China. Fireworks always happen, as you can see. Also, if there's a slight delay in the noise, it's not because I've got to press another button. It says sound travels slower than light, don't you know?